Welcome to our video on least common multiple, also known as LCM. In this video, we'll talk a little bit about what least common multiple is, go through the steps of how you find it, and then try a few problems together. So, least common multiple is where you have two or more numbers and you're looking for a multiple of theirs that they have in common and that appears first in both of their lists. So a multiple is the result of multiplying a number by another whole number. So for example, the multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and so on. So when we find the least common multiple, we're going to follow these steps today. You should know that the way we're finding the least common multiple today is a traditional way. It's not the only way to find least common multiple, but it's one that you should know how to do, that you should be familiar with, so that you have a couple different tools in your math toolbox to solve problems. This will really come in handy when we work with fractions later on in the 6th grade year. So when we're finding least common multiple, we follow these steps. First, we will list the first few multiples of each number. A few tips: I usually list about 5 multiples to start, and as a tip using this method, I would really start by listing the multiples of the smaller number first. A lot of times, problems you're given, the multiple of the smaller number will actually be the other number. We'll try an example like that. Then the second step is to find any common multiples that they both share. And then third step is to identify the least common multiple, or the one that appears first in both of those lists of multiples. So let's try a problem together. All right, so let's try first the numbers 6 and, that looks bad. I'm going to delete it. I hope you don't mind. All right, let's try the numbers 6 and 8. Okay, so our first step will be to take the numbers and list about the first 5 multiples. So multiples of 6. I've got 6, 12, 18, 24, and I'll throw a 5th one in there, 30. Now let's list the multiples of 8. So I'll start with 8, that's the first multiple, then 16, 24. Oh, have you noticed something? I'm seeing 24 in both lists. We could throw in a 4th or a 5th multiple here for good measure. We know that the 4th multiple of 8 is 32 and that the 5th multiple is 40, but we don't even need to list that because at this point in time you may notice that the multiple of 24 is appearing in both lists of 6 and 8. So we know 24 is the least common multiple, or LCM. 24 is the least common multiple of 8 and 6. All right, so let's try another few examples so you get the hang of it. Okay, let's try the numbers 15 and 45. So our first step here would be to list the first few multiples of each number. Now remember, I said to start with the smaller number. Sometimes it's better to start with this number because it's easier to skip count by the smaller number. So let's start here. So 15, 30, 45, what's that? 45, our other number, happens to be a multiple of the first number. Do we even need to list multiples of 45? We could if we wanted to be fancy. We could say, well, 45 is the first multiple, 90 is the second. But we should be so excited that we remembered to start listing multiples of the first number that, look at this, we already found the least common multiple of 15 and 45. 45 is the least common multiple of 15 and 45. So sometimes one of the numbers itself is the least common multiple. That is great news whenever we see that. So let's try one more example together. So I'll give you two numbers, and then you can pause the video and practice it on your own. Then start playing the video again to check your work. So let's take the numbers 12 and 9 and find their least common multiple. Pause the video if you want to try this on your own. All right, so let's check your work. I have the numbers 12 and 9 just as a rule. This is my rule. This is not one you have to follow. It's just my suggestion. I'll start by listing the multiples of 9. So I've got 9, 18, 27, 36, and 45. Okay, I listed about the first 5. That should be good. Now I have the number 12. Let's list the first few multiples of 12. 12, 24. Next one is 36. Whoa, are you seeing this? Looks like we found a multiple in common. We found 36 is on both lists. It appears first. So 36 must be our LCM of 9 and 12. Give yourself a pat on the back if you got that one correct. Thanks for listening to this video on least common multiple.